It's still October, and since I reviewed a werewolf movie last week, I think it's only fitting to review the 80s version of Twilight. The Lost Boys. So The Lost Boys came out in 1987, was directed by Joel Schumacher, and has the honor of being one of the very few Joel Schumacher movies that I actually enjoy. And comparing it to Twilight in the opening doesn't really do this movie justice, because yeah, while it is still a teen vampire story, this movie actually leans into the vampire tropes and the stuff you'd want to see from a teen vampire story, instead of cleaning it up and dumbing it down and completely butchering vampire lore. But this movie opens up in Santa Carla, which is the murder capital of the world, because, as we'll find out very soon, a whole bunch of vampires live here. And we see this family move in. The mom, Lucy, played by Diane West, just got divorced, and her kids, Michael and Sam, played by Jason Patric and Corey Haim, respectively, are not too thrilled about moving into the murder capital of the world, but they don't really have a choice. And Santa Carla is this weird combination of California meets New York, New Jersey, Coney Island, boardwalk culture. And that setting actually works to this film's advantage because it gives it a very specific identity. This is a boardwalk culture, it's an amusement park, there's all these fun and games, it's a place where people are constantly immature, which is one of the themes about this movie. They're called Lost Boys. It's clearly an allegory or reference to Peter Pan. And this whole carnival aesthetic makes you feel like you are trapped in that adolescent phase of life. And this movie wastes no time getting going, because the first night that they're there, Michael and Sam wind up at this concert with this very suggestive saxophone player. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to think that this director might not be entirely straight. But erotic saxophone man aside, a lot does happen this night at this concert and around it. For one, Michael meets Star, and he's instantly attracted to her. He's been staring at her kind of creepily across the way, but she's been kind of staring back, and they've been, flirting with their eyes a little bit. But while this is happening, Sam kind of peeled off and he went into a comic book shop where he meets the Frog Brothers. And the Frog Brothers are played by Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander. And Corey Feldman really elevates this movie quite a bit. He's this very young, nerdy kid whose dad owns a comic book shop, but he, along with his brother, are convinced 100% there are vampires in this town. And Feldman's approach here feels like he's a bite-sized Rambo, or I guess more accurately, Charlie Sheen's Hot Shots parody of Rambo. Corey Feldman's giving off that kind of energy, and it is incredibly entertaining to watch just how seriously he's taking everything, and he's talking like an adult, like he's done this a million times. But really, I'm pretty sure that him and his brother have never confronted a real vampire before in their lives, and this is just their first opportunity, and they're really excited, but they can't show how inexperienced they are, so they're overcompensating. When they do start gearing up, they're doing weapons checks like they're going off to war. But while all this is going on too, the mom, Lucy, is introducing herself to Max, who's going to be her kind of romantic love interest in this movie. And Max owns a video rental store, and he's super friendly. He's, your generic, charming, nice guy. And so over the course of one evening, we have established all of the key relationships in this movie. Michael and Star, Sam and the Frog Brothers, Lucy and Max. The only relationship I haven't talked about yet, because this happens towards the end of the night, is Michael's relationship to David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, back in his Stand By Me generic bully days. And here he's the leader of this biker gang that I guarantee you either influenced or was influenced by the Cobra Kais from the original Karate Kid. Just the way the lights shine in the darkness. The fact that they're these generic bullies that also have a gimmick going for them, so they're not too generic. The Cobra Kai's being karate, and this one being that they're a bunch of vampires. And it just so happens that Star is part of this group, so Michael kind of gets roped into this group too through peer pressure. And it's the scenes when they're all together and they're doing their teen vampire things when the 80s-ness of this movie really shows in the best way possible. You've got your bikes, you've got your leather jackets, you've got your mullets. And I'm just gonna stop right here to talk about the mullets for a second, because this movie has what I would call the bad mullet and the good mullet. Because for me, not all mullets are created equal. There are some that actually look pretty good in my opinion. And I would say Michael's hair in this movie is a pretty good representation of the good mullet. I think that actually looks pretty good. But then you've got Kiefer over here, and that's not a good one. But these vampires take Michael back to their lair, which is this underground hotel that fell into the fault line. So it's this really creative set that they built, and it looks good, it's lit well, it's very atmospheric, and it feels like a teen vampire hangout. It just feels right. And it's here they start playing tricks on Michael's brain. They have some Chinese takeout and he takes some and it's rice, but then it turns into maggots. So he spits it out and it turns back to rice again. So you're like, okay, David's kind of messing with him, making him not really trust what he's eating, to the point where he offers him this really old looking bottle of wine, but is it wine or is it blood? Who knows? Short answer is it's blood. Michael actually drinks the blood because, again, he can't really trust what he's seeing, so he just takes it on faith that it's wine, and he takes a swig of it, and no, it's blood. He drank the blood, which means now he's becoming a vampire. And what I like about this movie is that they make it very clear what the rules are in this world in visual ways. Because while there are some scenes that actually talk about the rules and tropes of vampires and which ones apply here and which ones don't, a lot of them just kind of come through visually. You understand that, okay, he drinks the blood and now he becomes a vampire. You understand that Michael has to kill someone before he fully becomes a vampire, and so on and so on. The movie does a really good job at blending exposition and visuals to make you really understand what's going on and what the limitations are. So going with that, Michael comes back. There's a time lapse of, I don't know how many days or weeks have gone by, but they seem to all have settled in this new status quo. Michael is becoming more and more nocturnal, and he's more anxious during the day, and he's a little bit more snarky, until his powers become activated when the Lost Boys kind of run their bikes around the house and then disappear. And now he has a bloodlust. And then through a hazy reflection in a mirror, Sam realizes that Michael's becoming a vampire, and he freaks out, and he goes to the Frog Brothers, and now we have this very interesting team up movie with the Frog Brothers and Sam, and then Michael actually joins in because Michael doesn't want to kill anybody, and the more times he spends with the Lost Boys, the less he likes it, and the more he's like, no, I just want to get out. I want to take Star with me. Star's not a huge fan about being a vampire, by the way, so she also kind of wants out. And the one vampire character that I always forget about is Laddie, and Laddie's this little boy that's also a half vampire. So Laddie, Star, and Michael are all half vampires. None of them have ever killed anybody yet. And I always find stories like this and like Blade, where you have half vampires that want to kill the full vampires. Because we've seen humans going up against vampires so many times that whenever there's someone who has a little bit of that vampire blood or vampire DNA in them and they go up against the vampires, for one, they aren't just weak humans. They have that strength and that power that comes with being a vampire, so the fighting is a lot more interesting right off the bat. But also you have this morally gray tension where is the half vampire gonna succumb to his vampire side and possibly eat or turn his fellow humans, or is he gonna stay on the right path and complete his mission at taking out the head vampire? And Lost Boys does this perfectly because Michael, Laddie, and Star are all in that gray zone, but you have Sam and the Frog Brothers that are determined to finish the mission. So then during the day, Michael, Sam, and the Frog Brothers all go to the underground hotel, the lair, and they're there to kill as many of the vampires as they can before they get found out and have to leave. And they manage to kill one of them before the others wake up and start chasing them out. But the mission wasn't a total failure because, like I said, they were able to kill at least one of them, so that's pretty good. But most importantly, they were able to get Star and Laddie out of there. So now they're out of danger, they've joined the good side, and now everybody's holed up in their house, waiting for the sun to set, preparing all these traps and weapons. Because you know that as soon as the sun goes down, David and his goons are going to get their revenge and just wipe out all of them. And this is where the movie really comes alive, and it elevates it from just a good teen vampire movie into a great teen vampire movie, because it almost turns into something like Monster Squad for a minute, where you have them setting up all these traps and you see them go into this church and steal all the holy water, fill up canteens with it, and they use that to fill up squirt guns and fill up a bath full of holy water and garlic. And that's just the tip of the iceberg for the amount of creativity in this climax, the different weapons that they have, and also the ways that the vampires die, which I think is a new innovation for vampire lore. And it's that no two bloodsuckers die the same way. Some of them explode, some of them implode, some of them melt, some of them catch fire. It's anybody's guess what happens, but it's always violent. And like I alluded to earlier, the garlic and holy water bath is probably my favorite kill in the whole movie, because this dude gets pushed into this bath and he just melts, and it's gruesome, and you see all the layers of skin and muscle just disappearing to the point where you have a vampire skeleton, which I can't even count on my hand how many times we've actually seen a vampire skeleton in a movie. And this is one of them, and it's awesome. So they all manage to fend off these vampires pretty darn well. David puts up a little more of a fight, but Michael ends up taking him out in a pretty awesome way. But the big twist is that David isn't the head vampire. So now they're all thinking, well, who is it? Is it Max? They thought it was Max earlier in the movie when Lucy brought Max over on a date, and the Frog Brothers and Sam just totally sabotaged that whole evening because they're constantly trying to test to see if he is a vampire, and he passes every test. But once all the vampires are destroyed, Max walks Lucy back home and they see the carnage. And it's here where Max reveals himself to be the head vampire. And the reason he passed all the tests earlier is that if you welcome a vampire in your home, you're powerless to stop him, which I guess means he doesn't have any of the weaknesses that a normal vampire would have. So already he's a much more formidable foe in a very natural way. And I guess here's a good time to talk about the makeup jobs in this movie, because the makeups are probably some of my favorite vampire designs ever made. And it's because they're surprisingly subtle. When they vamp out, their whole face isn't covered in prosthetics and design work on the face to make them look so monstrous. It's really just the brow and eyes and, the fangs that are affected. I think that was such a smart choice because you use the actor's face to your advantage. They can emote well in it, and also it keeps all the vampires from just looking the same. When you have the unique bone structures of all your actors informing your makeup, they're very different from each other, and I just gotta applaud the makeup team on this movie for giving us some of the best vampire makeups ever. And just when you think Max has won, he's got the upper hand, a car just starts barreling into the house, and it's Grandpa, who has kind of been this elusive figure. He's got all these rules that really amount to nothing. He's kind of this kooky old man that keeps to himself and likes taxidermy, so you think he's, fairly innocent. He doesn't really know what's going on. But it's here we find out that all this time Grandpa was a vampire prepper, and possibly even a vampire hunter, because all of his woodworking and taxidermy has been very cleverly setting up defenses against vampires in the house. It's here where the car comes barreling into the house, and Max takes a wooden stake right to the heart and dies when you realize all of this had been set up effectively. From the first time you see Grandpa in the movie until now, all of these little strange and eccentric details have been adding up to this reveal that he knew about the vampires all along, and he has dealt with it for many years. And that's The Lost Boys. It's a really smart and effective teen vampire story. It's very dated, but dated in the way that almost makes it timeless. Kind of like Back to the Future, where it's so clearly set in 1985 that it's just part of the story. This is the vampire version of that, and it uses the teen angle to its advantage. It touches on peer pressure and immaturity and never growing up and romance and just all the things that a teenage boy would deal with in regular life is present in this movie between our main characters, Michael and Sam. Depending on how old you are watching this movie or what you were like as a kid, you'll relate to one or the other or both of them to some degree. But now I turn it over to you guys. What do you think about The Lost Boys? Whatever you think, let me know in the comments, and if you like this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content, and hit the notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. And as always, I'm Colby. This is My Nerdy Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.